High Tech Podcast. This is one of your two co-hosts, William Millingworth, joined by my friend, colleague, co-host, mentor, mentee, Notion expert, Notion savior. That'll come back in a couple seconds. I'll tell you why. Joshua Swartz, you there, my friend?
What is up, folks? It's time for the High Tech Podcast. Yeah, it is. Brought to you by Harness Tech. Little plug.
Oh, well done.
We gotta get used to saying that at the beginning.
Yeah, right. I'll try. We are here, as always, High Tech Podcast brought to you by Harness Tech. Woohoo! Make sure to subscribe. Follow us on all of the socials. Today is actually the day that we launched season 7. So we're riding high on this new brand, but this is episode 154. So you've already been seeing this for a week now.
Yeah.
We are just loving it.
Fine.
This is 155. Oh, so I just numbered this episode's studio incorrectly. Yay!
Yep. Hey, nailed it.
Later. Welcome to episode 155, everyone. Go find us at High Tech Podcast on Twitter, YouTube, etc., LinkedIn. We've got a big spot there, trying to make sure we can promote the podcast, get it out to everybody. And you can find us at our email and website, which are both hightechpod.us. That's the domain, but our inbox at hightechpod.us is our email address where you can send in your ideas, opportunities to join the podcast, interview ideas, etc., etc. We love to share and have friends involved, especially as we come into this new era of high tech. All right, so we're in episode 155. That's great. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I was just gonna throw a plug. We haven't even talked about this, but if you've got a problem you don't know how to solve with tech or something, drop that to us. That's gonna be something we're gonna be trying probably to do. I say probably because we haven't really committed to anything yet, other than what we want to do already recording. But we want to do it to helping some people out, whether that's not live or live. Will and I listen to other podcasts that do it live, and we really want to do that at some point. But we need more of you to subscribe and prove to us that you listen to our podcast before we start actually doing that. Hit us subscribe, make sure you hit us up, and if you've got a problem or something you're working through, you want some help figuring out, that would be a great thing to shoot us an email at inbox at hightechpod.us. So yeah, we can guarantee we will be able to help. I would like to note, should probably be like, productivity, learning, tech related. I don't know. If it's a personal problem, maybe Will and I can help.
Oh, I'll talk to anybody about personal problems all day, but I'm not going to be helpful for changing your oil in your car. Like that's not something
100% not.
You should
email us. Like house things, don't hit me up. I can't help you. I can barely do
computers, software, video games, learning. Yes.
Yeah.
Drop it. The
beard growing. Will can't help, but I can.
Hey, I got some 5 o'clock here. Yeah.
It's a little fuzz.
It's a little something. He's trying to be nice. He doesn't even know what to say. He's like,
it's the start of a forest, like just the beginning.
and you're over there wielding Ents, So today, here's just the fun story of the High Tech Podcast, folks.
Oh yeah,
and why Josh thinks that it's probably a risk to have me as his business partner and podcast co-host.
Not a risk, but I just need Notion to give me more permissions. If Notion is listening,
fair. Yeah,
I need more permissions for this exact reason. So just saying.
So I'm just going about my day using Notion.
Yeah,
I type a question to Josh and something, then I'm like, wait, before I ask it, let me just try and search a little more and see if I can't find the answer. I did, which was great. So I go back to that page where I had the question drafted. I hit Control All, and I hit backspace, backspace, backspace. And the first backspace deleted the question. It's great. The second backspace deleted the page I was on. The third backspace committed nuclear warfare, and suddenly I had deleted the entire dashboard that is our business. Bam! I just stopped. I was just like,
I could tell you were panicked in the Discord message you sent me because it was an abnormal. Like, you don't usually mention me if you didn't remember to do it in the message unless you really want me to notice it. And I like. So here's my side of the story, folks. Okay,
it's fact. It's fact.
I've basically been a partner that only responds in the evenings now because I have a different job, and I'm quite busy right now. And so, and I've always tried to, respect my day job's time, but during my
Appropriately
breaks,
so.
maybe respond real quick, like a text to Will in Discord. But I've been basically ignoring Will during the day for the most part, with a few responses here and there. I'm like finishing up my lunch, to like go meet with like my boss's boss, for the first time, and I'm getting messages from Will like going, I deleted a page or two, and I log in and everything's gone. Like I'm like coming out, I'm trying to finish my lunch break, and everything is just like removed. Now, what Will doesn't know on the side is I didn't uber panic because I know Notion, and while this is a good selling point for Notion, when you delete something, it's not actually gone. It's usually in a trash, and it's also very easy usually to find it if you still have the link to the page. So I did, and I found it within seconds, restored the whole thing, and it all came back. And it was fine. But you better bet after I was done with work that day, which is today, so this day, the day that we are on, I went to sharing permissions in Notion, and I was like, can I change anything to ensure this doesn't happen again? I can't, because Will is my business partner, so he needs to be able to do a lot in Notion. And I know some people who know Notion who are listening to this podcast are like, Josh, do you not know you can lock pages? I know I can lock pages. I can't lock this one because we still have to be able to do stuff on it. Like we still have to be able to edit it. So
and in a postmortem, Josh and I could not figure out how I did it.
I still don't understand what he did.
Know why it
I
happened.
I don't know what happened. But if you're looking to sell Notion here off the podcast, which we always try to do, they did have good recovery methods, so nothing was lost forever. I'm just saying, if Will had maybe done that in SharePoint or OneDrive, it might have been gone forever. I'm not saying
trying to call Bill Gates, like, hey Bill, can you hook us up, man? Yeah. Like no one can fix this.
If he had done that in OneNote, it might have like messaged a hacker. I don't know, like
or made 6 copies of it.
Yeah. Anyway,
all of them unlinked from each other,
fact. Right? Yes, somehow. So there's your fun fact. For
that's our fun. So coming off of such a wonderful story, we are here in episode 155, continuing this series on generally productivity excellence, efficiencies. We're investigating. There's going to be still some of the points of the conversation about like anxieties and things. Like we're coming at a human approach to productivity. There will be plenty of Notion, but I am going to cue up Josh to get us going with the overall topic of this episode, because I don't have it in front of me. And that's the thing I've just realized I did not have a note on. So what is the topic of this conversation? Fun facts.
If you had noticed, Will's in a closet, basically. I think you are actually in one this time, right? Like, this is a real closet?
Help! Yeah, okay. This is my bedroom.
Yes, this is your bedroom?
But there's nothing else to be seen over here. This is a bed and a TV, and then there's the closet. I could go in the closet if you'd like me to, but then my Wi-Fi might be worse.
Yeah, So anyway, Will doesn't have great Wi-Fi, so he's got everything closed down right now, which means he doesn't have any of our notes open, but he's got some information that he put in our chat. Guess what he didn't do? Put the title of our episode. This episode, we're going down a different journey. So the beginning of the series, right? We talked a little bit about, in general, why doesn't tech just make us more productive? Will and I talked a little bit about in that episode. If you didn't listen to it, go listen to it. Don't know why you're just here now. Go listen to that one. Then come back. I swear. It'll be great. But we talk a bit about the fact that tools don't just solve the problem. We wanted to talk about what productivity actually means, what it means to do our work well, whether it's running a business, whether it's teaching, whether it's developing things, leading projects, or just your own stuff, right? From our perspective, what that looks like well. So for this episode, we wanted to get a bit into what are kind of the essential tools you do need. So I think our big takeaway from that episode really is that you need in my opinion, right? And I think Will agrees with this. It's about the system you set up for yourself and how you follow it. At the end of the day, tools don't just solve that. But at the end of the day, you are going to need tools in some fashion. And some people pick to make those tools like Post-it notes. And if that works for you, that is great. That does not work. Well, Will does do some paper. Will does more paper than I do.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. That's true. We did get him set up. You'll learn more about that later in the series. But I like digital stuff. And so for me, there are kind of some key tools I think everybody could leverage in some way. And some of them are going to seem, most of them are just going to seem, we're not revolutionizing things, like Will and I met a nuclear engineer on our vacation a couple weeks ago, who was much smarter than us, and our friend. If Alex happens to listen to this episode, funny fact, folks, real quick, this is a rabbit hole. Will and I went on a vacation to Mexico with a whole bunch of friends, which was great. Other than my wallet still being in Mexico and me not, it was a fantastic trip. Yeah, it was fine. It was great. Great time. But there were like 20 of us, and there were a lot of friends of a friend of ours named Alex, who is one of the best people I know. He's a great guy. He's great at bringing people together, and I consider him a very intelligent person. But here's the thing: every other one of Alex's friends, and listen, Alex, it's not like he works in the salt mines, which is a perfectly fine job as well. Alex has a pretty decently hard job that requires some thinking and work, right? Like, it's not like I consider Alex a smart person. This is gonna come off horrible if Alex listens to this episode. I don't know what to do.
I'm loving it.
Okay, it's gonna be great. But here's the thing: every one of Alex's friends are like the smartest person we could find.
Doctors, mechanical engineers.
Like at one
dealing
point,
with
one
space,
of them goes,
aeronautics.
I'm an engineer for Boeing, not the airplanes, the rockets. Okay, and that matters. Yeah. Okay, the rockets actually fly. Sometimes the Boeing ones don't. So like she mentions that. Another person's like nuclear engineer. Another one's like
somebody worked for the CDC.
Yeah, somebody worked for the CDC. And Will and I are like, we build courses. That was our week anyway.
And we have a podcast.
I don't really realize how we got there. Anyway, we're not really revolutionizing anything. That's the point.
Right. Not like any of them are. Right.
Yes. No. Though I built a rocket once, but it was a toy rocket and it didn't fly. Fun fact. It was actually supposed to. It just fell over. Yeah, it's fine.
In there.
It's okay. All right, so I want to talk about categories of tools, right? We're not trying to revolutionize anything, but I'm always surprised by the amount of people who don't really think through these things very carefully in what they're doing, right? And so when I'm helping people try to figure out, okay, what do I need to do to get started on the productivity side? Start with what Will and I already talked about, which is the system, but then looking for the tools that can help support that system, right? And so the way I break this up personally, and Will, feel free to add stuff from your end, is I looked for something that I could manage tasks in. I looked for something what I call resource management, basically a place I can take notes, but also document things, put stuff I don't want to forget because I'm going to forget it. And then some kind of calendar tool I could use to kind of manage my schedule. Like that was what I was kind of looking for, right? Obviously there's email, there's other tools involved. Notice I specifically said task management, and I'll put in parentheses, hashtag not your email,
not
please.
Inbox.
Okay. I'm very passionate about this. Some people don't agree with me, and it's fine. They're wrong. But those are my three core ones. I mean, Will, is there other stuff you could think of? You're like, these are essential, and then we'll get more granular to actual tools, but like the categories of kind of tools that I think you need involved.
Yeah, no, I agree with you at the level of like productivity management, etc. I keep in mind communications tools because I think there's a whole swath of email tools, but then like there's the whole battle today about Basecamp versus Discord versus Slack versus Teams. Like there's tons of these tools, and unfortunately, I say that very seriously. Even I'd even throw in video communications like the Zooms and Teams and RIP Skype, and if you remember AppearIn, which has changed its name.
Did you know WebEx is still a thing?
I don't know how, but yes,
I literally used it today. Sorry.
Oh,
they're actually a modern app still. I didn't. Honestly, they look better than Skype did, which is like.
That's not hard. It's not hard to accomplish.
Like
I loved Skype. Sorry. In the back in the day, it was the first in the market.
Yeah, but, when there was nothing else around. Okay, sorry. Continue.
Communications is important to me because I think as a category, it's about how we get to each other, and we're even talking about right now WebEx and Teams, some tools that frankly make it harder to work with others, right? But even Slack, I love Slack. I'm a big Slack proponent. Is doing tons and tons more stuff to continue making themselves more complex. They just released tasks last week, and I'm like, okay, Slack's going to become a project management tool. They're going
Nope,
to bleed
don't
into
like
that
it.
space. And I'm like, I believe communications are their own thing and should be their own thing. Communications tool should not be your project management tool. See the inbox conversation, right?
Yeah, well,
But
unless it's Basecamp and it's got both, but you know.
well,
Um,
but they designed that to be both and to have
yeah,
those two, like
yeah. They
Slack
did
was
originally.
built
They
to
were
be
just a
comms
chat tool. They were just the
originally.
Basecamp was just a chat tool before they became a fuller project management tool. They were called something else. It was a different software. So anyway,
Oh,
all my point to that side story is, hey, Slack, 37 Signals would like its plan back that they implemented back in the early 2000s.
whoops. Exact. So that's my caveat because I agree with you. You got to figure out, like, if we're talking about the scope of a project, the life cycle of a project. And again, Josh already made the point, but we want to reiterate that could be a learning focused project. It could be a creation focused project like corporate or education. Like, we can make a project fit any number of contexts, but a project needs the tasks, the resources, and the schedule. You've got to do things in an order by a time. And besides that, talk about it. You've got to be able to communicate. So that's the only category I spend a lot of time in. I think a lot about because of people relationships,
Yeah,
management, how to engage, how to. But if we're getting into the nitty gritty of the task itself, the project itself, I'm with you. It's this task management, resource management, calendar tool space, and I think there are some that are trying to do well at being all of the above. But I think that it's definitely good if we're talking philosophically and how to accomplish good work, productive work, to chunk these out and understand them individually so that you can, in my opinion, you can set the best standards for all three. If you take a
yeah,
tool like a Slack that just adds tasks in willy-nilly, and by the time this episode is a year old, I promise you Slack will probably have like released 10 features that makes tasks, but like today all
or
they've
be
done is
dead,
just thrown
whichever
in,
one.
or both. They've just thrown in tasks, right? And I don't think that that's like the way to make Slack better. You need to make Slack a better communications tool by focusing on the communications features. That's part of my take on this. But again, if you understand each of these areas first individually, you know what you need to accomplish when you set out to do something. Like, I was once told to use Jira to make a Scrum adjacent sprint system with points and all sorts of crap for an instructional design team, and it flopped. I built the whole thing and they used it for 3 months and moved on. What broke down for the team? I used the system they designed, points system, the time, the cycles, da, 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 da. I did whatever, but they didn't adopt it. They couldn't get past using it for 2 or 3 months. So something missed the mark in what they were trying to accomplish philosophically versus the product that they ended up using.
Yeah,
That's some of
yeah.
my
That was a
context around all
system.
these problems.
Yeah, and that goes back to our last episode. Like, that's a system adoption issue. And like, whether it's personal or team wise, that's why I say it doesn't start with tech. I see too many people trying to get better at being productive, either as a team or just a person, and their first result is, if we adopt this tool, we'll be better at doing this. But it never works that way. You need to actually figure out a system that's going to work for your team or for you, and adopt that as well. And but I do agree with Will. Like, communication, if we're talking, because I was mainly thinking personal productivity. So at that point, screw the rest of the other people. Talk to them however you want. The I was thinking more like personal productivity being,
Yeah.
task management, resource management, counter tool. But if you're talking a team, yes, you need something to communicate well. And I would argue it shouldn't just be email. It
Yeah.
should be, we have modern chat tools now for a reason. And even Teams. Like, listen, I bash Microsoft as much as the next person. but even in my search situation right now, I'm having to use Teams a lot more. It's not as bad as it used to be, and there are worse ones out there. So like different tools like that. But at the end of the day, task management, think of these three categories: task management, resource management, calendar tool, asterisks, communication if we're talking team productivity and things of that nature. Right. And so in some cases, these could be the same tool in my mind. Like, so let's talk about this here for a second, right? Like, Will, you used to do this for a little while. My dad does this. Like, he manages all of his tasks and meetings in his Google Calendar separately. Google Calendar has a task system. I don't have any problem with that. That's a good, if that system works for you, that's fine. Like, that's how he does time blocking and how he figures out what he's going to do when. That's great. Me personally, I don't like that nearly as much because I just don't like a calendar. I like my calendar to just be my calendar. It can have tasks on it, but I'm not going to use it to like manage my day to day. Right? It's just there for me to see when I have meetings and stuff coming up. That's more like time based stuff. And I know a guy who's pretty adamant about like he keeps his task and his calendar separate because for him, I do want to clarify this. I think this is a good core point no matter what you do. And even my dad's system and his calendar is set up this way. Tasks are what you're going to do. You might block them out over time, but there's something specific you're going to do, right? A meeting is something you're going to be a part of. You're going with other people, most likely. So they are separate things in your own system and way of thinking that I think are important clarification, right? And that's like some of this stuff, some of you are going to be listening to this and go, this is not that revolutionary. You're correct. It's not. But, Will, I think you would agree. We've all worked now on multiple teams. And how many, let's take away just the team productivity for a second. How many people just don't seem to have some kind of system for themselves, right? Like they might use their calendar to manage their work meetings because they have to. People send them invites and they have to invite other people. But like they don't have any kind of like really clear personal task management and notes system for themselves. And it's often that group of people that like, I'm not trying to be demeaning in any of these cases. It's often, you can, at least from my perspective, you can see a level of disorganization that could be different if you did some stuff like this. It doesn't have to be quite at this intense at level. Would you agree? Because I know you and I are a bit different on this as far as just like level of intensity.
I agree with your sentiment, but like when you ask the question, like, do you kind of sense of who's doing what? I actually know. I know fewer people. I know a smaller amount of people that manage their work, right? That they have a system like we talked about in the last episode, but like you do, like you execute in your life for personal and professional. I know a small set of people who actually manage their lives, manage their work, and the rest don't. Like the most people I know might put some things on their calendar, maybe. Like that's like I know I've worked with way too many professionals who the only system they have is a calendar of when they need to be at meetings and maybe when some deadlines are. When I have done some stuff in my professional career and people are like, hey, we need to deliver this project. Okay, that goes live August 1st. Cool. Crickets. I mean, crickets, dude. Like nobody comes up with a plan and says, all right, we need to have everything done 2 weeks before August 1st so that we've had it QA'd, we've had it tested, we've like nobody else is doing that around me. When somebody tries to come up with like a communications plan, I just met someone last week who had a template. Like anybody else who would start comms plans would just start a little table at the top of the doc and be like, this person is this responsibility, this person is this responsibility, this person this responsibility, and then this comm this date, this comm this date, this comm this date. Like that was the scope of what people would do for planning, and this is some of my current professional stuff, but even long term across my career so far, more people do not have a plan, do not have a project plan than people who do. I mean, I would probably put it on one, maybe two hands of people in my career who have maintained project plans where tasks are delineated, tasks and deadlines are set up, and then they're managed in a tool of some sort. Sometimes it's been calendar based, sometimes it's been a Google Doc. But even somebody who uses a Google Doc to write up their project plan is doing more planning than most of my peers who have just like they just show up to a meeting. They might take some notes. They may or may not deliver when they were asked to deliver. Right? That's been my experience with most professionals.
Yeah. And to be clear, I'm not necessarily saying everybody has to have like an intense project plan like those of us who have project management experience do when we're actually doing projects. I'm more just saying like organizing what you're going to do, right? At least in some fashion. Now, I think you still would agree that your statement you're saying right now still holds up to that. You're basically saying there's still a handful. Now, here's my question. Like, if most people don't, is this necessary? Right? Like, let's be devil's advocate to we're going off the beaten path a little bit. Exploration a little bit, but like let's beg the question of some of the stuff we're talking about. Is this necessary? Right? If maybe the listeners listening to this are going, and I know people are, because I remember taking a course in the last team that I was on that was on similar stuff like this. Now the guy had some other stuff in the way he packaged it that probably didn't sit right. But there were several members on our team that were like, this is overkill. Like, this is insane overkill. I don't need some like personal task management thing and a resource management tool and a calendar tool, or like some of them together. Like, I put my tasks on some Post-it notes. I'm good. Go team, right? Like, that was some of their reactions. Like, this is overkill. So I'm asking you, I have my own thoughts and reactions to that question, but I'm also biased. Are you like, what's your thoughts on this? You're the more understanding.
As a guy who has used several different systems over time, I have never once committed to one system, and that's changing teams, but even within a few teams, I've used different methods as we adopted and got rid of tools and stuff like that. For me, it's not the worst thing. Some things, work still does get done. What I think is what I'm prioritizing in my professional career right now and for my purposes is this balance of getting it done against anxiety, like stress and missing deadline. Like I don't want to feel stressed doing my job. I want to be able to have a path to complete my job. So knowing when deadlines are, knowing when the tasks are set up, accomplishing them within the time frames allotted. Like, if you can follow a programmed path, there's a lot there's fewer decisions to make. There's less stress overall. You're not as exhausted because you've hopefully planned things out accordingly, so you're not doing it all at one time or trying to manage different projects at the same time, right? Like the creative effort that goes into, for my sake, building an e-learning is different from the administrative effort that goes into managing a learning management system, right? Like there's different creative energies that are expended in those places, and sometimes I'm doing both of those in the same day. Sometimes I'm doing both of those at the same time. And so what I want to get away from for personal purposes, but I would also hope others would want to seek this as well, is reducing or eliminating the stress that comes from not having a plan. Work is always still stressful. There's still stuff that needs to get done, deadlines to be met.
Yeah,
sure,
stuff
but
blows up
if you have
plans.
a good plan, sure. Like deleting a Notion database, that could really mess things up if
or getting pneumonia
Notion
for a week
to save us, or getting pneumonia for a week. Gosh, Josh, come on. I think that it's not the end of the world to not have a plan, but I see a lot of benefits to have it and use a tool and use a system to keep that plan moving forwards.
Okay, that's a helpful, because I would agree, right? Obviously, I've got a bias in this. I've become obsessed with this probably in the last couple of years.
You like plans?
What? No, like, but I always used to be this way. Like, I in my first job, I put tasks in an Evernote page, and had like a running table in an Evernote page. You know what I mean? Did I not get stuff done? No, like I got stuff done. I'm not saying if you don't do this, you're gonna like be a failure living in a box. That's obviously not true, because so many people don't, and they're fine. I think what I was getting at, and this is something that we had a conversation about in the last team that I was on, was like, this isn't about if you don't do this, you won't be successful. It's about, I see too many people in chaos and anxiety about all the stuff they have to get done, or people who can't answer questions about what they're going to be working on that week. And like they're stressed out about it. It's more about, you know, the phrase that you and I throw around a lot, especially recently as we've been trying to rethink what the High Tech Podcast is. It's bringing order out of the chaos a bit of life. And that doesn't mean there's not going to be stress. It doesn't mean the plans are going to get thrown off. You know, things happen, stuff just doesn't get done. But personally, for myself, what was game changing about doing more of this was that when people asked me to do something for them, or I needed to plan out work or figure out what I was going to be doing next, I had some kind of system and a set of tools that I could leverage to help myself not have to feel like I had to remember everything and not feel like I'm forgetting things, and be able to be better dependable for the people around me. Like that is what I think I'm more talking about. And I will say that I argue you notice a significant difference in some ways between people who are really intense about some of this stuff and the people who aren't. And I know I'm intense about this, so I'm a little biased towards it, but like people do go and do, you know, interviews with incredibly successful CEOs and people that are doing stuff, and they all do things differently. But the thing that most of them have is some kind of like absurd system for their life. Like it's kind of ridiculous. Like even successful people we don't agree with, right? Have some kind of like crazy system for their life that they do, right? Now, some of them are totally lying when they say they wake up, work out for 3 hours, and then read for 3 hours, because that's 6 hours of your day. They've already lost it. I don't care what time they woke up in the morning. They're not doing that. But they're like genuine people. I've had the advantage of being able to sit down with people who have been incredible leaders or resources in the organizations that they're in. And the ones who do it well have some kind of system for themselves. They have to, because they're looking over so much stuff. And one of my encouragement to people, and even people I've had as reports, is to say, if you want to get to that space, then you need to start living that way now, whether you think you need to or not. And I would still stand by, even on my own team, and if any of them are listening to this podcast, it's not you, Robin. She knows. She's got it. I may have made the sarcastic comment that for those of you who don't like this, I would like you to argue between the groups of us who have done it and those who haven't. How many of us have met our deadlines more often? Like, and that's a slightly arrogant thing to say. I know. Okay, I've missed deadlines. I'm not, you know, like it's not a thing, but I would stand by this on a many ways. Now, it can look very different for everybody else. I think like it doesn't have to be the exact same way. I think these are just some of the core tools to how to do it. And whatever you decide to use to do that, like for instance, I'll make the joke. Robin on my last team that I was on, who's been on the podcast plenty of times, she's not a big digital person, although she was using Notion more by the time I left. I don't know where she's at now. But she liked to post notes and stuff, and she nailed stuff. She got stuff done all the time. There's nothing wrong with that. But she had a system for herself. Like that's the difference.
She knew how to get her work done. She knew how to do stuff for herself. I love that. Here's one thing though that I think your way, Josh, right? So I don't want to make you the antagonist of this. I don't believe you're arrogant or the bad guy or whatever. Like I know there's certain
because I don't say everything to you. I think
that's wow. You have a filter.
Yeah, I mean a loose one, but I have one. It's there.
No, the project manager gets a bad rap, right? You're the person who holds everybody to task. And it's very easy to look like the bad guy. But here's the thing, between you and between me, if someone walks up to either of us and says, William, what did you accomplish this week? And Josh, what did you accomplish this week? Here's William's response. Okay. I'll give you William's response, and then I'll let Josh give his response after I've given my response. 50% furiously types and pulls up calendar, furiously types and pulls up email inbox, furiously types, and somebody asked me that, I'm trying to like, okay, so I met with so and so, I try to quickly put together the narrative. So this is what I did this week. I pulled together something on this project. I generally move this project forwards. I help so and so to get to this thing, and I have a couple meetings on this, and this, and I'll be meeting with so and so on Friday, hoping to take this forwards, to meet the deadline for August 1st. Like, that's what William says. Okay, I was able to very vaguely pull that together because it's something I say frequently. But if you'd notice, listener, there was no objective data about what William actually accomplished. Joshua, your turn.
Let's see. I can't say exactly
How many?
because it's from work, but I can tell you I finished 12. I can tell you I finished 12 things yesterday, a combination of meetings and tasks. If this was a coworker that asked me who I could tell what I actually did, I could tell them exactly what I did. I completed 27 things today. I don't know what all of some of those were meetings. Some of those were stuff for us after work.
You have
some of those different things. I can tell you the exact time I finished them, in case anybody was curious.
You have like over 9,000 or whatever assets in your Notion, right? Like you have,
I have thousands upon thousands of pages.
Okay, folks, that he does that, which means he's saying he can count. There is an objective marker of what Josh completes, and that is a result of his system. If there is a significant difference that's not just socio-emotional, like being less anxious, being less stressed, being less exhausted, those are good things, but those are the things I'm looking for out of my system. The business benefit of what Josh does is you can quantify his work. You can measure what Josh did, and he does, like he just demonstrated.
Yeah, made reporting very easy. And side notes to this stuff, so I we're not hiding it. I left my last job just recently. I had to write a document of everything that I did in my job. Okay. I finished that document in 45 minutes.
Wow.
Wow. And it was a database upwards of 32 items. And that was just my every weekly, daily, and monthly tasks. That didn't include the 7 projects I was on. The only way I was able to do that is because I have a system in Notion. I literally can open up an area in Notion and tell you every task I do on a repeat basis and now that's extreme. I have an extreme system to a certain level, but at the other end, to Will's point, that has become very helpful in the 5.5 years I was in my other job at what to tell people I did. And how I did it. It's why I'm so passionate about this stuff, is because I've seen it impact my own life and make things easier to do. Even the joke has been Will, I was at a campground on, I opened Notion in Mexico. I was in Mexico. Okay. And we're sitting in a cabana, drinking, and Alex, who I was just making fun of, needed to get a porch redone, and my brother-in-law is a great contractor. He's awesome, and he's coming to help me with my porch because it needs some work. So Alex and I were talking, right? And Alex is like, if you could reach out to him and ask him if he'd be willing to help out, and give me his contact if he is, that'd be great. How many of us have said, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna call it out. How many of us have said, yeah, I'll do that? Now, Will, you're better at this than anybody else too. Have said, yeah, I'll do that, and we totally forget about it. We get back from vacation and you have forgotten about things like that. You get back because you didn't do it.
Yeah.
I opened my phone, tapped a button, and put in a reminder that said, reach out to Zach on Wednesday, put my phone away, and went back to my vacation. And on Wednesday this week, I got a reminder that said, reach out to Zach, or last week, reach out to Zach about that. And I did. And they are now working on their porch scenario. Now, some people can just remember that on their own. That's great. You're a blessed person. I cannot. And so my system has helped me do that. And that's why I think on the majority, people could benefit from these types of things. So I think we've made a long enough argument. So I want to talk a little bit about actual tools that can do this. Like what's some of the actual tech that can do this? Obviously, let's put it aside. Paper planners, paper calendars, all of that stuff can do it. That is fantastic. I'm not saying you shouldn't use those things. I know people who are very productive who uses those things. My dad uses some of those things, and he is a very productive person. And right now is currently probably working more jobs than I am. Like that's the like, you know, so like he has a system that works for him. I'm not saying get rid of paper. For me, paper doesn't work for these reasons. I don't remember to bring it along, and I like having access to it at all times at my fingertips. Because if I think of something I don't want to forget, or I want a task that, like, I've even been in the bathroom getting ready in the morning, and I remember something for harness tech that I need to do that I completely forgot I needed to do. And in that moment, I can pull up my phone, take 30 seconds, put it into my system, and forget about it. Like and I don't need to remember it until my system reminds me, right? That's what I like about my system, right? And I think that's why it's important to have these things that kind of work together. That's why task management's important. That's why resource management, the amount of stuff you and I will have put in notes somewhere so we don't forget about it, and then I search up later at some point, or I need, it's part of the reason I'm able to pick up information so quickly. It looks like I'm just good at picking up information. It's because I document mostly everything I hear. I was just in a meeting today and I said 2 acronyms, and somebody was like, that was impressive for somebody here for a week. If they end up listening to this podcast, here's the trick. I wrote it down somewhere. That's why I remember it. That's the only, like, the, you know what I mean? Like, that's, some of those tools. So I'll let you go first, Will, because obviously I have an endless list of tools that could fit this idea. What are some of your thoughts beyond the big one we'll talk about here at the end, that we both love?
Yeah.
But what are some thoughts? People don't want to get into some of that stuff.
In the task management space, I will admit to liking, because it's a 2-for-1, Google Calendar and or calendaring apps that distinguish between an appointment and a task. Right. So Google Calendar does differentiate. You can put in a task. You can put in, I have Google for my day job, for work. And so we have like extra features that free Google does not have. So I can put in focus time. I can put in a task. I can put in an appointment, which would have somebody involved in it. I can put out of office time. They can even now do like schedule slots where I can say, like, from 10 to 12, you can book with me. Like there's good features in there. And I like that for some general task management. What I do with that, though, is to set out, like, specific things that, like, it's those quick things. Like, I have to go check on that user account, make sure it updated correctly. I have to do something quick. It's like I do it, it's checked off, and it's done. And it also, it doesn't have a life cycle. There's no repetition. It doesn't happen again and again. It's not an annual thing. It's not when new hires come in. It's just like, I just need, something went wrong with something, check it, make sure it's done. So I like that Google Calendar works for that basis. It doesn't have accountability. There's no, like, measurement. There's no consistency. You can make, like, repeating ones, but it's not really much more than that. So it's kind of like a throwaway. What I like beyond that, though, in the task management space, I've actually for a long time been a big Trello fan. I love a Kanban board. The idea of moving things left to right, setting your columns and your stacks correctly. Like, I'm really into that. And I think that Trello has gotten better and better, especially, like, I used them when they were just a free platform, probably, like, trying to get people, sourcing people, trying to get people to use them more, just because, you wanted to build a tech stack. But today, like, they have dozens and dozens of features that help you not only track kind of a task level, but a project level, board level, whatever the language is. And I think it's pretty, it's easy. Josh and I have used it, with Dad Ziner when we did the high tech rebrand.
Yeah,
like,
it's very well done.
It's an efficient tool. So it's one of those that I haven't been using recently, but having used it, for a specific project recently and stuff like that, it brings it back to mind that I do like it. And it has time. Like, you can put everything on a calendar, you can track it as you're working across that. But then, to move things through phases or move things around, it's very user friendly. You can still sign up for free. It's one of those tools that I like to get people, that I think helps people get into task management without being overcomplicated.
Yeah, I would agree. Trello is definitely one of those. And this is why, like, there's a lot of different levels to this. If you don't want to get, I know plenty of people who don't want to get into like overly complicated things. Another one I recommend, ironically, as much as we make fun of them, Microsoft To Do is actually a very solid. If you like just checking off things, they have a pretty solid like priority / do today my day thing that they do on it. That I have coworkers who like would swear by that they use Microsoft To Do as their software. And it was great. Like they loved using it. So if you're more into like checking off boxes, Kanban boards tend to be, unless you've used them at work, I know can be somewhat overwhelming for like the person who hasn't leveraged that very often. So like Microsoft To Do is one. There's a bunch of personal ones out there. There's a tool called Todoist that's pretty solid. It's not cheap. But if you just Google Todoist, you can check those out. And actually, let's make sure we take notes of these things we're saying, because I'll make sure they're on the episode notes. So I will do that here for a second. But Todoist, Todoist has slightly more features to it that will like pop certain things up. My thing I always tell people is this: if you're gonna look for some kind of to-do task management thing, look for something that can in some way kind of pop up for you what's due today or coming up.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the biggest thing where I think people fall apart. They like do their to-do list, but then it just becomes like this absurd, like I've just recently seen this, like somebody doing it in Excel. It just became this like absurd table of like so many things. And at that point, things get lost. What you need is something that can take the mental energy away of having to try to remember what you have to do today, and can help you guide you down the road of what you should do today. Right. And so Microsoft To Do, Trello, Todoist, those are all tools that could help you do that with minimal setup. I think that's the important thing that we're talking about. With
and like Google Calendar or Microsoft Planner might already be inside of ecosystems you're working in, right? So you don't have to go learn or get a new software to get Google Calendar or Microsoft Planner. You can start working with those today if you're in those ecosystems.
They're simple enough that you don't need to be some project manager to learn how to use them. Like, Asana is a great tool for teams to manage things. But if you're just looking for tasks, it's like a project manager is going to know how to use Asana to its fullest in ways that you don't, right?
It's a really good product. There's just a lot to Asana. Like, and if you use it on the simple side, if you're using it for the simple side, you don't need to use Asana. The things that you want to use Asana for are the complex and really detailed stuff. I do use it for work. It's a good platform.
If you're looking for something for a team that'll really help you, obviously Will and I are huge fans of 37 Signals. We've mentioned them a couple times. Basecamp I love Basecamp. It's got page tools in it, so you can have your resources in there. It's got a calendar view, and it's based very much on like to-dos and communication. And I think it works really well for teams who don't have some complex project management system already in place. And so Basecamp would be one I recommend if you're looking for something for a team. I would love to recommend Basecamp for you personally, but they got rid of some of their personal plans because that's not who they're marketing to anymore. They do have like they have like a $15 a month plan that you can do on your own. That's not a personal plan. You can still invite other team members in, but it's a lower level plan. They are trying to meet some needs, but $15 a month is not. They don't have a yearly plan. Like it's just $15 a month. It's not the cheapest one out in the market for a personal. That's why I'd probably throw you, if you're looking for something simpler, throw you over to Trello, Microsoft To Do, Todoist. These are all task management. Calendar, obviously there are massive ones out there that we'll already throw out. Google Calendar, Microsoft Outlook Calendar. Just go to one of those two. Don't make your life complicated. You can go to one of those. I have a third one I will suggest, but I'm waiting to package them all together here in a second when we talk about it to hit you with the whammy. But calendar tools, those are great. Resource management tools out there. This is just like docs and areas. Like, so I would recommend find a good cloud-based tool to do this. So like Google Docs or Microsoft Word Online are both solutions to this. If you get some of these tools we're talking about, like Basecamp, they have their own page system in there that you can check out. But check out some of those. They mostly integrate with a lot of stuff you're looking at, right? I personally would say go to Google Docs if you're looking for a free version of something to do, but there's a bunch of other options out there. Looks like you were going to say something.
Well, and I think the resource management tools like we're using that phrase, but like it's wherever you can take notes down, wherever you keep documents, like
Yeah.
whatever you're doing, right? It is something like Google Drive. It is something like Basecamp, Microsoft Word Online. There's tons of tools that do this. My top point about the tool for resource management is start with a system early, organize. I mean, it's the number
Yes.
one team killer for me when it comes to resource management. Like even for your own self, can you find your own files? If you
Yeah.
can't find your own files, it doesn't matter what tool you're in. You need to start with an organized system in your resource management. So if it's just Google Docs, if it's just Google Drive, for instance, just make a plan. Do a mind sweep. It's a practice that we have not yet talked about in this
Yeah,
series.
we'll talk about
But
that
it's
more.
something that will come out
Look at-
later. But like,
Look at Will knowing
yeah,
things and just throwing words around.
right,
You know.
right. Get together an overall system of all the stuff that you possibly might want to be doing in resource management for, and build a system early. And maybe you can't make all the folders right away, but it's like, okay, you're going to need something for topic 1 and topic 2. Make a folder for topic 1 and topic 2. If you're doing the para method with Josh's thing, like set up your areas, set up your projects, boom, like that could be your organization system. It doesn't matter, but just organize, please. You'll save everyone a lot of time further down the road.
I also did forget to mention one great note tool if you're not looking for like just doing cloud docs or whatever works. Evernote is a long-standing solution out there that is a solid note tool. There's a bunch of other more complicated ones out there, but they're not worth mentioning because my final push that we will push every episode on this that you can get into and we can help you get into in the High Tech Podcast is Notion. My number one. This is why I love Notion so much. Like, right? So we talked about this in the beginning of the episode, on the first episode of this. We showed a little bit. We previewed some stuff in that episode of what I was doing. But like, I love Notion so much, not just because I think it's cool. It's because it was the only tool I could find that, for me, brought together all three of these things into one area. Right. So I know there are some people who are really adamant about you shouldn't have all these three things in one area. If you don't know who they are, that's good. That means you don't live in the obnoxious dark circle of productivity people on the internet that I do, that waste our time arguing about this stuff. But I love Notion because it brought all three together for me. I hated having these all in different places. And because I'd be taking notes one place, and I'd want to put down a task. And when I had them in separate apps, it was always annoying to have all that stuff open and try to figure out where I wanted to do it at. And some are integrated, right? If you're using Google Calendar to put a lot of your stuff in, it'll integrate pretty well with Google Docs. So it'll pull stuff over, but none of them quite gave me the flexibility I wanted to be able to do what I wanted. And so Notion became that tool for me. So real quick, I just want to bring my stuff back up, right? I'm going to bring Notion back up here for a second, and then we'll drop some links for you. If you're listening to the podcast right now, hang with us. We'll try to say some stuff out loud and explain it to you. But also, when you're done doing whatever you're doing, unless you're driving a mechanical vehicle of some sort, go to YouTube or Spotify. Both will give you the video version of our episode. And you can jump over to this timestamp and see this part of the episode and our beautiful faces. But
53 minutes and 30 something seconds.
Yes, exactly. That. So here's the deal. I'm going to share my screen again. Now, we did this in the last episode. We talked a little bit about, but I want to highlight specifically how the three categories I'm talking about come together in this setup. Okay, so let's share screen. Okay, we should be seeing my Notion, my weird king picture up there. Maybe I'll explain that one day, right? Okay, so I've explained this a little bit on the episode. Will knows a lot more about this, and we'll actually get into way more detail. At the end of this series, we will actually walk through in detail how to leverage our template for doing this, okay? And if you're curious, you want to check it out already, you can go to the link below. It's in all of our notes. It'll be in all of our notes for this series. affiliate.notion.so/harness-tech_para dashboard. That will take you to a template version of what I'm looking at right here, with tutorials and stuff that'll teach you how to do it. And in the last episode of the series, either in that episode or probably during that week, we will also be releasing some video clips of me live teaching Will how to use this, because he had not been using this yet and he wanted to. So
Yeah,
I showed him how to use it. But this is my version that's already built out. Okay. And so like this is my dashboard that I use, and I have it configured very carefully to bring up stuff that's due today, to show me tasks I've delegated to other people that are due tomorrow, to bring up stuff that I label as a priority that I want to work on. So I'll go here in my timeline, I'll look at tasks that are due. A lot of these are hardest tech stuff right now, right? So I have timelines for them, and I'll say, you know what, it's not today, but let's pretend today's the 3rd. I'll go, you know what, that's a priority, I want to work on that. I for some reason want to decide to work on this today too, so I'll pop that open. I'll do priority. This is a curated version for you to make it less overwhelming. I promise there's a lot more tasks than 5 on my list, my normal list.
He hid a lot of things.
Yeah, I had to do some filtering. So bring that all up, and then it comes into my work day, and I organize it into time slots, into these time blocks in my work. Now, we'll talk more about this next episode of what this actually is, how to do time blocking, but this is what brings it over, right? So I use this. But here's the key of how it brings all this stuff together, right? Notion allows me on this task, let's say I want to take some notes on this task. It's a page as well, so I can do that, right? But if I want to save that eternally, I have a wonderful little resources area right over here that has all of my notes in them, okay? Every page, and you can't see here, but it goes back to 2020. So this is 4 years worth of data in here that I can just search. Wow. All of this stuff is connected then to areas and projects. And we talked a little bit about this. We'll talk more about it throughout the series. I use a specific type of method called Para to run my system, right? I talked a lot about that in the first episode of the series, because we were talking about systems. It's all based. But again, all of this is in one area. So if I go to a project, right? Like let's open up my projects. And I just curated one here for you. This is one that we're working on. Without going into a ton of detail on this, like this has all of my tasks, and I don't have any notes for this one right now, but if there were notes, they'd be down here and they'd be in my system. Right. And so all of this is integrated together. And what this has allowed me to do is have kind of a central brain, if you will, of everything that's due, everything that I want to remember. And then Notion, to make my life even easier, released a calendar app that connects into all of this. So now all of my meetings and everything are also in there. So everything is centralized into one place for me. That has been a game changer for myself. It makes managing things so much easier. It makes finding what I need to find so much easier, and has made my life a lot easier in this area, right? And so that's why I'm so, obsessed with Notion in many ways, is because of that dynamic, and because I think it's such a powerful tool so that you can do that. Now, I built all of that based on a different template somebody else had created. If you don't want to mess with your own system, you just want to do it, that's why you would go to this link, because that template is all pre-built for you with tutorials on how to put your own stuff into it, like your own projects and areas and stuff. Explains how to use the template. You don't have to build. We'll test to this, and you'll see more at the end of the series. You don't have to build your own databases to use that template. I did all that work for you. Okay, so you can do that using that template. It's plug and play. I think you test this at this point. You didn't have to you'll do some of your own customization because you like that stuff, but it's not like you had to go in and like learn how to do linking databases and Notion and do all of that stuff.
You go get yourself a free Notion account. You go to Josh's link there. You're good to go. It's not a complicated thing. It's really easy to get into. And I'm happy we kind of saved this as the punchline, because while we talked about all the different tools, and we've used all of them, all of these ones we've talked about, Josh and I have both used at different times. Nothing works like Notion does. I mean,
yeah, I will test.
We love it. We love how good it is and how consolidated the process can be.
Yeah, I would agree. I have just not, even recently, I was trying to test the waters and see if I could find something else. Not that I was planning on leaving Notion, if you're listening. I was dealing with some stuff where I might need to have another solution in some scenarios. And I just couldn't find anything that did this. There's been some competitors that have come out claiming. Now, I haven't tried. There's another one on the market called Obsidian that a lot of people really like. I have not tried Obsidian.
Yeah, I've heard this.
But I know that it is similar. It does have some of the power that Notion has. But there are other tools out there like bashing my favorite people to bash. Microsoft released a solution called Loop. Don't waste your time. You can't do what I just showed you here. But like that's again, I built a whole system. I wanted a system. My dashboard, I live by that thing. It reminds me what's due. It reminds me what's coming up. I can see at a glance what I'm going to be able to do. And it's also what allowed me, when Will asked me, what did I just do this week, to tell you I did 12 things, 27 things today, and I can tell you each of those items. That's what enables me to do that. So if you're interested in doing that type of stuff, or even waiting in, you can just start to put tasks and projects in there. I didn't start with that system. It's been built over several years. And so I think this is a journey. People, I think, view this as tomorrow I'm going to be immediately better. It's a journey of just starting somewhere. And so that'd be my encouragement to check that stuff out, because I know it's helped me, and I hope it can help some of our listeners here as well, in getting a bit more productive in their lives. So,
perfect. I think we've nailed it.
Yeah, nailed that. So next week on the podcast, we're going to tell you how Will deleted all of our Notion. No, I'm just showing. We'll see. We'll see what happens next week. No, next week we're going to be, we're going to be getting into the next part of our series. This is a 5-part series. Next week we're going to talk a little bit about what productivity practices Will and I have found that can specifically reduce anxiety in our world today. I think there's a lot of anxiety in work, in life, about things, and I've learned, and so has Will, I think, from other people, stuff that has helped us reduce some of that anxiety and get a bit more control over our lives and what we're doing. And so we're going to share some of that we've already previewed, like time blocking, how I look at my tasks, some of that stuff. Those are all practices that are a part of my life that I have tools that help me do them, but the key is actually the practice itself. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what those practices look like, and hopefully something that you can glean from that. So that's going to be next week on the High Tech Podcast. Again, just a reminder, check us out on Twitter and YouTube if you have not already. And we say that now like those are the only 2 places. You can actually check us out on all socials, either at High Tech Podcast or at High Tech Pod, to get a hold of us. Like Instagram actually has more than the one post Will did that one time. Like this is crazy. We actually have somebody doing social media. So we're on TikTok. If you like TikTok, go check out at High Tech Podcast, or at High Tech Pod is what we're on TikTok. You can go find us over there.
It's one or the other.
I just remember recently, because Sam was looking it up, she wanted to see proof that we were on TikTok, and follow us, because that's what she uses TikTok all the time. So hit us up there. Again, check us out on YouTube. Please subscribe, whether on your podcast platform or on YouTube, on all of them, please. It helps us out. It'll help make sure you're notified immediately when new episodes come out and new content, which will be coming out more often. We're hoping some more clips and things will be dropping both on social media and on our YouTube account with the new version of the High Tech Podcast. So make sure to check that out. Again, email us at inbox@hightechpod.us if you have some suggestions, ideas, you want to be on the podcast, want to tell us that we're doing a great job, whatever you're feeling today, you can let us know over there. And again, check out our website, hightechpod.us. We have lots of information, show notes. Our pages are changing a bit with the new version of the podcast, but I believe it'll actually be easier for you to find the links we talk about in the podcast now in the new version of the pages. So you can go find those by going to our website. With that, folks, again, this is a wrap on another week. Empowering minds.
Embracing tech.
Cheers.
Cheers.